Israel preparing for a possible strike on Iran's nuclear sites as the entire Middle East is on full alert. A major item in the Big Beautiful Bill garners rare praise from both fiscal hawks and populists on the right. And riots against ICE now extend to Chicago, Atlanta, Phoenix, and other major U.S. cities, except those in Florida. I'm Tony Kinnett, host of the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Thursday, June 12th, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. After Iranian leaders firmly rejected the United States talks to negotiate the Iranian nuclear program yet again, the Iranian Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, during his speech addressing nuclear talks saying, quote, "Trump is lying and his statements are not worth a response. Death to America, death to England, death to Israel, death to infidels," end quote. Charming. The United States began a process of pulling some troops and many non-military staff out of the Middle East. According to a report from the Washington Post yesterday evening, the U.S. ordered all embassies in striking distance of Iran, including those in not just the Middle East, but parts of Eastern Europe and North Africa, to convene emergency action committees and to send cables back to D.C. about what measures they are taking to mitigate risks, which led to departures from Iraq from all U.S. non-military personnel and the State Department issuing an immediate advisory for all American staff to leave the country at all cost. Reuters reported that the commander of U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, General Michael E. Kurilla, has postponed his Senate testimony later today in front of congressional leaders due to rising tensions in the Middle East. According to multiple U.S. officials, the U.S. is on high alert in anticipation of a potential Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear sites. The United States Fifth Fleet was placed on high alert and ordered to station. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas also issued a statement at 4:53 p.m. yesterday, quote, "Today, the Secretary of Defense confirmed that Iran's terrorist regime is actively working towards a nuclear weapon. For the sake of our national security, the security of our allies, and millions of civilians in the region, this cannot be allowed to happen," end quote. President Trump was asked about the situation yesterday evening right before Les Miserables at the Kennedy Center.
Give us an update on Iran.
Because you're in charge.
Say it again.
Yes, a question from Newsmax. Could you provide an update on Iran? We're hearing reports that U.S. personnel are being moved out of the region within striking distance.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are being, we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that can be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
Mr. President,
An hour after sunrise in Tehran, that would be about 10:37 p.m. here in Eastern Time when this is being recorded, there was not a military strike from Israel into Iranian territory, nor do we anticipate one in broad daylight. That said, if overnight Eastern Time something does occur, this newscast might be a bit out of date, but rest assured we will bring you as much coverage over at dailysignal.com as possible. While there is still a serious amount of contention from members of the populist right to the fiscal hawk right and the libertarian right on matters of spending in the Big Beautiful Bill, currently fighting its way through the Senate, there are a few key points of unity which all parties agree is a pretty serious win for those in the United States. One of these provisions would allow industries moving into the United States to write off construction expenses, equipment, infrastructure costs, and other opening operation costs from their taxes. We sat down with David McIntosh, president of Club for Growth and former representative from Indiana's 2nd, to talk a little bit more about this.
We were looking at the problem, how do we bring back factories and jobs to America? President Trump's made that front and center one of his priorities. There's a provision in the Big Beautiful Bill that says if a company builds a new factory, buys a new machine, we're going to allow you to immediately deduct all of that cost from your taxes. Immediate expensing is what they call it. The House put that bill in provision in the Big Beautiful Bill, but they phased it out after 3 or 4 years. And President Trump wants it in there. Secretary Bessent at Treasury wants it in there because they know this will grow the economy. The Tax Foundation says it's about 1% bigger economy when we do this.
I'm
Just this one provision.
I am so tired of the quibbling and the squabbling over this conversation over how are we going to lure businesses back over here? What about all of these top-down approaches? The common consensus among the right, from your average economists all the way to your small factory operators, from your pundit class to your practical class, the blue collar and the white collar on the right, they understand deregulation and lowering taxes creates an incentive. If you're going to move GM back into the United States from Mexico, you've got to let them build the factory. You have to make it worth the while. How is this not already, I mean, a 4-year phase out's one thing. How is this not front and center in the bill? Really?
No, exactly. And so what we're working on now is getting the Senate to do the right thing and make it permanent. Because that's when the tax foundation says these factories will come back, we'll have the jobs, the economy will grow by 1%, just in that one provision. Club for Growth's foundation has been studying this for over a year. We got the economists to come in. We've been working with the tax writers up on the Hill, and we're saying, yes, big, beautiful bill. We need it. We need to make sure we extend the Trump tax cuts. But the one thing you can do that'll really supercharge this for bringing factories back here is this immediate expensing for buildings, for capital investments like a machine that the...
You can find the link for the rest of that interview down in the description. And riots against immigration customs enforcement in the Trump administration in general have now extended from Los Angeles and New York, where the riots still persist, to Chicago, Atlanta, and other major U.S. cities, including places like Seattle, in which the police chief Sean Barnes announced yesterday that their department would not engage in any immigration enforcement activities of any kind.
As I watch the actions taken by federal law enforcement in California and along the West Coast, I am reminded of why I became a police officer. It is my job to support the rights of our community. Let me be clear. The Seattle Police Department does not engage in immigration enforcement activities. We do not inquire into or collect information about an individual's immigration or citizenship status unless it is directly connected to a state or local criminal investigation. This is, of course, the sole responsibility of the federal government. My responsibility is the safety and security of the people of Seattle. We adhere to Washington state law, which limits our involvement with federal immigration authorities for enforcement purposes. Here in Seattle, no one should be afraid of contacting local law enforcement to report a crime, ask for help, or cooperate with an investigation. Our officers are here to serve everyone regardless of their immigration status.
You won't see major cities in Florida like Tampa, Pensacola, and Miami on the list of riotous cities, partly because of how Governor Ron DeSantis is managing the situation.
The law, they don't have to cooperate. Well, now you have the law being applied. And honestly, I think in the initial stuff that was done, this was ICE going after people that were on felony warrants that had done things that are really, really bad. And yet they're out there burning things down, massive looting last night. I'm seeing these stores being looted. That doesn't fly in Florida at all. So we did do the anti-riot legislation many years ago. I know Commissioner Simpson, helped pass that when he was the Senate president. And that's really, really positive, but we are very much leaning in if there's any issues. They said there was some protest and people in Florida are just holding signs. They're saying whatever. And look, I may disagree, but that's fine. You're on the sidewalk holding signs. The minute you cross into attacking law enforcement, any type of rioting, any type of vandalism, looting, just be prepared to have the law come down on you. And we will make an example of you. You can guarantee it. So I appreciate what you guys have done in that regard. And the larger issue of Florida's leading the nation on a state basis in immigration.
Before you go, head down to the description and make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kinnett Cast. And join us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern for a whole lot of news I'm not even going to prep you for, because by the time we get there, it's probably going to have changed anyway. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.